The story begins with a young boy named Yun Seun is seen sitting with a psychiatrist and talking about his insomnia, which started ever since the tragic incident that happened to Suho, his best friend. Seun has struggled to sleep because he keeps having disturbing dreams about the incident and always blaming himself for being the cause of what happened to Suho. Since then, Suho has lying in a hospital bed in a coma, leaving Seun all alone to deal with everything on his own. Because of this situation, Seun was transferred to a new school named Unjang High School, hoping to start over with a new. However, he quickly realizes that the new school is not much different from his previous one. Not long after Seun arrives, rumors begin spreading around the school. Some students claim that he killed someone at his former school, which is supposedly why he was transferred. Because of these rumors, most of the boys were afraid of him and make sure to stay away from him. Meanwhile, Unjang High School has its own bully named Hyoman, who controls students through fear. One of the students constantly working for him is Seo Juntae. Juntae spends his days running errands for Hyoman, including delivering snacks and carrying out whatever tasks was given to him. Hyoman has even given Juntae a list of students whose phones he is supposed to steal. Since the school's rules require students to hand their phones to the class monitor at the beginning of the day, Juntae has an easy opportunity to steal them. When Hyoman checks the list later, he notices that Juntae has marked Seun as someone who should not be messed with. Hyoman became very furious and beats Juntae for refusing to target Seun. He then orders him to steal Seun's phone before the end of the day. Later, Juntae collects the students' phones from the teacher and secretly takes Seun's phone before handing it over to Hyoman. When Seun notices that his phone is missing, Juntae pretends that he has no idea what happened. However, he soon starts feeling guilty because Seun does not cause any trouble over the missing phone. After school, Juntae followed him and tries to apologize. But Seun already knows exactly what happened. He tells Juntae that he knows about the stolen phones and calls him a coward for thinking he could fool him. That evening, Seun's mother takes him to buy a new phone. While they are together, they talk about the possibility of Seun going to study abroad. His mother worries that she has not been able to spend enough time with him due to her job, but Seun didn't say much about how he feels. The next morning, he visits Suho at the hospital. Suho is still unconscious, so Seun quietly talks to him and tells him about his sleepless nights and what happened with Juntae. Technically, Seun is imagining writing messages to Suho while sitting beside his hospital bed, as if he is still able to communicate with his friend. When Seun returns to school, he witnesses Hyoman and his group bullying Juntae on the stairs. Watching them reminds Seun of everything that happened at his previous school. For a brief moment, he imagines himself attacking the bullies and stopping them. But instead of acting on those thoughts, he simply walks past them and continues toward his class. During lunchtime, Juntae approaches Seun and brings him a snack and a drink because he knows Seun often sleeps through lunch. This time, Juntae finally confessed that he has been stealing phones and giving them to Hyoman. He explains that he does it out of tension and fear. But Seun immediately warned him not to be a coward. However, Juntae says he has started thinking about how he does not want to remain a coward forever. He asks Seun to teach him how to stop being afraid. Seun responds by telling Juntae about Newton's third law of motion. He explains that without an action, there cannot be a reaction. Juntae takes the advice seriously and later researches Newton's laws on his way home. At the same time, Hyoman and his friends are drinking at a bar and try to contact Juntae so that he can pay for their drinks. Unfortunately, Juntae did not answer. Hyoman decides to pay the bills himself before leaving. It turns out that Hyoman is trying to join a powerful gang of school bullies led by Sung Jae. Sung Jae is spending his time at a cyber cafe when Hyoman arrives and asks about joining the group. Hyoman is also told to steal 100 phones as part of the gang's current task. While they are there, an older man insults Sung Jae and mocks him for being nothing more than a high school student. Sung Jae responds by violently smashing the man's head against the table while smiling. Hyoman immediately becomes frightened by what he has witnessed and quickly leaves the cafe. The following morning, Juntae arrives at school early. After thinking about Newton's first law of motion, he decides that he cannot continue being used by others. He breaks into the cabinets where Hyoman's group keeps all the phones they have stolen. Juntae takes the phones and returns them to their owners, including Seun's phone, leaving apology notes with each one. After completing everything, he lays his head down and takes a nap, knowing that Hyoman will eventually discover what he has done. When Seun arrives at school, he overhears students talking about Juntae returning all the stolen phones. While some students are surprised by what Juntae has done, others are worried about what Hyoman will do when he finds out. Their fears quickly become reality. After hearing that Juntae returned everything, Hyoman angrily heads straight to their classroom. Juntae knows that Hyoman is coming for him, so he tries to prepare himself. He puts a bun in his mouth to protect his teeth like a makeshift mouth guard and removes his glasses. He then attempts to stand up to Hyoman. Unfortunately, Juntae is still no match for him and is beaten badly in front of the other students. Seun watches the beating without saying anything. But as Hyoman continues attacking Juntae, Seun begins remembering Suho and the way his friend once stopped him from going too far. He remembers a moment when he was about to hit someone with a chair, but Suho stepped in and stopped him. Now, as Hyoman grabs a chair and prepares to use it on Juntae, who is already helpless on the ground, Seun finally decides that he cannot stand by and watch anymore. Just as Hyoman is about to strike Juntae with the chair, Seun steps forward to defend Juntae. You have been mercilessly beaten. At the same time, Park Hoo-min and Go Hyun-tak, who are members of the school's basketball team, were frustrated after one of their members, Hoo-min, was suspended. Hyun-tak and his teammates are unhappy because they wouldn't be eligible to participate in the upcoming basketball tournament. While Hyun-tak is on his way to confront a teacher about the situation, he notices the commotion coming from Seun's classroom and follows the other students to see what was going on. Inside the classroom, Seun continues to take Hyoman's punches without fighting back. However, when he calmly dodges one of Hyoman's punches, Hyoman becomes furious and loses control. Before he can continue, Hyun-tak steps in and stops him. Hyoman tries to provoke Hyun-tak by calling him Hoo-min's minion, but this only makes Hyun-tak angrier. Hyun-tak responds with a powerful karate back kick that comes close enough to Hyoman's face to make him freeze in fear. He then reminds Hyoman that he could take him down with just one kick. Hyoman continues shouting, but eventually leaves the classroom. Seun pays little attention to Hyun-tak and instead focuses on Juntae, who has been badly beaten. He tries to take Juntae to the nurse's office, but Juntae refuses. He explains that students like them avoid going to the nurse because the nurse usually makes a big issue out of their injuries. He treated himself with some first aid. Seun then asks Juntae why he returned all the stolen phones even though he knew Hyoman would punish him. Juntae simply says that he did it because of Newton's third law. Seun realizes that Juntae has misunderstood the scientific principle he previously mentioned and is about to explain it, but Juntae's friends suddenly arrive to check on him. Seun quietly leaves without correcting him. Later, Hyun-tak overhears some students talking about Seun and becomes curious about him. The students tell him the rumors about Seun's previous school and claim that he did something terrible that left Suho in a coma. Hyun-tak did not believe them and assumes the students are simply making up stories about Seun. Still, the rumors make him even more interested in finding out who Seun really is. After school, Juntae runs after Seun and gives him some lutein and magnesium supplements. He explains that lutein can help with concentration while magnesium can help with sleep. Since Seun has been struggling with insomnia, Juntae gives him the pills as a way of thanking him for helping him stand up to Hyoman. That night, instead of taking his usual sleeping medicine, Seun decides to try the pills Juntae gave him, and it worked. The next morning, Seun arrives at school looking more active than usual. He joins Juntae for lunch and thanks him for the pills. Afterward, the two of them sit together and watch Hyun-tak and his friends playing basketball. While they were there, Hyoman approaches Seun and pretends to speak to him like a friend. He crosses his hand on Seun's shoulder and tries to apologize, but Seun immediately took his hands off. He casually tells Seun that Hyun-tak is planning to beat him up. Seun looks directly at Hyun-tak, immediately catching his attention. Hyoman then makes things worse by telling Hyun-tak that he and Seun have become close friends. Before fifth period, Juntae tells Seun that he is going to the washroom. However, on his way, Hyoman's gang intercepts him and takes him away. Around the same time, Hyun-tak and his teammates leave the locker room after lunch and discover that someone has messed up their clubroom. Hyoman eventually approaches Seun and tells him that Hyun-tak has taken Juntae to the gym room. Seun goes looking for him and discovers Juntae locked inside one of the lockers. He immediately realizes that Hyoman was responsible for what happened. But Hyoman's plan is already working. He has deliberately created a situation where Hyuntak will believe that Seun destroyed the basketball clubroom. When Hyuntak hears that Seun has supposedly messed up the clubroom and wants to fight him, he becomes furious and rushes over. He sees Seun leaving the clubroom and assumes that he is the one who destroyed it. Meanwhile, Hyoman and his gang are secretly preparing to take advantage of the confrontation they have created between the two students. Later, Seun deliberately takes a dangerous shortcut on his way home. Even though he knows it is where the bullies usually hang out, he knows that Hyuntak will probably confront him there and believes taking a detour would only waste his time. As expected, Hyuntak appears and challenges him. Seun already knows that Hyuntak will not listen to an explanation, so he simply asks him to fight. Hyuntak accuses Seun of being a hypocrite who acts like a good person while destroying someone's life at his previous school. He brings up Suho's cases and accuses Seun of being responsible for his coma. Hearing this immediately changes Seun's expression, and the two start a serious fight. The fight quickly became intense, but before long, Hyoman and his gang arrive with weapons. Seun and Hyuntak realize that they have been tricked into fighting each other. They put their differences aside and work together against Hyoman's group. However, they are heavily outnumbered, and things quickly become dangerous than they expected. Just when it seems like Seun and Hyuntak are about to be overwhelmed, Park Hoo-min suddenly appears. The moment the bullies see him, their confidence disappears. Hyoman even drops the baseball bat he was preparing to use against Seun and immediately starts pleading with Hoo-min. But Hoo-min shows no sympathy. He grabs his basketball and slam dunks it directly onto Hyoman's head, knocking him down unconscious. Seun watches the scene in surprise, impressed by Hoo-min's incredible accuracy and strength. Hoo-min then looks at Seun and asks who he is because he has never seen him before. Even though he does not know anything about Seun yet, Hoo-min can already tell that the new student has courage. And with that unexpected meeting, Seun's new school life becomes even more complicated. Just immediately after the fight ended, Park Hoo-min, also known as Baku, reminding Hyoman and the other bullies of an important rule. As long as they are wearing the Eunjang High School uniform, fighting is not allowed. After making his point clear, Hoo-min sends the bullies away. Hyuntak then apologizes to Seun for misunderstanding him and realizing that he had been wrong about his intentions. However, Seun simply walks away without airing a word. Juntae quickly follows Seun and tries to comfort him about the rumors surrounding his previous school. Seun then tells him that what the students are saying is not actually a rumor. He admits that he really did ruin someone's life, which is why he does not want to get into fights with other students anymore. Juntae is surprised by his honesty, but Seun simply continues on his way. The next day, Hoo-min resumes school after his suspension and happily greets the students as he makes his way to the classroom. Once he gets there, he and Hyuntak have a serious conversation about an upcoming practice game against Ganghak High School. Hyuntak is worried because the Ganghak basketball team does not play normally. They mix martial arts into their games, meaning the match could easily turn into a fight and leave their players seriously injured. Later, Seun, Hoo-min, Hyuntak, and Juntae are called to the teacher's office. They are accused of beating up all the students from Hyoman's group because those students have stopped coming to school. Hoo-min tries to defend them, but his strange way of speaking makes the situation even more awkward when he accidentally calls the accusation a false accusation. The teacher is not amused and decides to punish all 4 students by making them volunteer over the weekend. Hyuntak immediately protests and points out that Hyoman's group should also be punished because they were the ones who started everything. But the teacher refuses them to argue with him and makes it clear that the punishments still remain. With no other choice, the 4 students agree to complete their volunteer work. During this time, Juntae explains the situation with the union to Seun. He reveals that several groups of bullies from different schools, including Yeol High School, Ganghak High School, and Yosung High School, have joined together to form one large gang organization. The group is not simply interested in fighting. They also run illegal businesses and collect money from innocent students. Hyoman wanted to join this union, which was why he had been stealing phones and collecting them for the organization's leaders. However, Hoo-min stood in his way and made sure the students at Eunjang High School were protected from unnecessary fights. This angered the union members, so they began targeting students wearing the Eunjang school uniform, beating them up and taking their money. Hoo-min could not tolerate this. He confronted the union members and beat up everyone who came after Eunjang students. According to Juntae, Nobody from the union could stand against him. This is why the union leaders are now angry with Hyoman for failing to take control of Eunjang High School. The union leaders drag Hyoman before Baekjin, one of the people in charge. Hyoman desperately asks for more time to deal with the situation, but Dongha points out that as long as Hoo-min is protecting Eunjang, taking over the school will be nearly impossible. Song Ji was also listening to the conversation over the phone. Baekjin eventually decides that the union needs to deal with Hoo-min directly. Meanwhile, the weekend volunteering gives Seun an opportunity to spend more time with Hoo-min, Hyun-tak, and Juntae. Despite the strange behavior of Hoo-min and the constant arguments between him and Hyun-tak, Seun slowly begins enjoying their company. Their friendship starts to bring out a different side of him, and he even finds himself smiling at their ridiculous arguments. During lunch, Hoo-min and Hyun-tak start bickering again and accidentally throw a chopped stick on Seun's hoodie. Seun refuses to say a word and immediately heads to the washroom to clean it off. Coming out from the washroom, he discovers that Song Ji was waiting for him. Song Ji takes a picture of Seun and becomes annoyed when Seun didn't show any fear. Instead, Seun simply stares directly into his eyes. Song Ji tries to attack him, but Seun calmly avoids his punches. When Song Ji notices Seun looking toward a nearby flower pot, he realizes that the situation could become dangerous and decides not to continue the fight. After leaving the washroom, Song Ji runs into Hoo-min. He casually tells Hoo-min that he and Baekjin should just make up so that he does not have to keep getting caught in the middle of their so-called friends' quarrel. Hoo-min did not seem amused by the comment, but Song Ji simply walks away. Unlike the other gang leaders, Baekjin is an excellent student at Yeol High School. He receives an academic award during a school assembly and appears to be more interested in his studies than fighting. However, while he is studying, money continues to enter his bank account. Later, Songmak calls him and confirms that all the money has been deposited. He also informs Baekjin that Hyoman has requested a meeting. Baekjin goes to the meeting location, where Hyoman and his minions are waiting to ambush him. They assume Baekjin will be an easy target because he is known for being a top student rather than a fighter. Hyoman even wonders how someone like him could become a gang leader, but they quickly discover that they have made a serious mistake. Baekjin fights back and defeats all of them with ease, proving that his academic reputation does not mean he is weak. After finishing their volunteer work, Hyun-tak and Juntae accompany Hoo-min to his father's restaurant to eat some chicken. Meanwhile, Seun goes to the hospital to visit Suho. As usual, he sits beside his unconscious friend and writes a message telling him about what happened during his day. While Seun is at the hospital, Hoo-min calls him to make sure he got home safely. He is worried because Song Ji had been following Seun earlier. Seun assures him that everything is fine. After ending the call, he continues writing his message to Suho. But then Song Ji suddenly appears outside Suho's hospital room. Seun immediately becomes furious when Song Ji starts talking about how Seun was responsible for putting Suho into a coma. Song Ji does not seem concerned about Seun's anger. Instead, he casually tells him to come outside with him because he does not want them disturbing Suho's sleep. Song Ji then makes it clear that Seun is exactly the kind of person he enjoys beating up. Seun stares at him with anger as the situation becomes increasingly tense. With Suho lying unconscious only a few steps away, Seun now has to face someone who has deliberately come looking for a fight. Song Ji takes Seun to a bowling alley and leads him to Baekjin's office. Baekjin barely pays attention to Seun and simply tells him to wait. But Seun has not come there to have a conversation. He has come to deliver a warning. Seun looks directly at Baekjin and tells him to make sure none of his people ever go near Suho again. If they do, Seun warns that he will kill them all. After delivering the threat, Seun notices that Baekjin is struggling with a math problem. He calmly helps him solve it before turning around to leave. However, Baekjin gives Seun one condition. He tells Seun to keep his word and stay away from Hoo-min as well. Baekjin then decides to put pressure on Hoo-min in a different way. He sends some of his men to cause trouble at Hoo-min's father's restaurant. Later that night, Hoo-min receives a call from a neighbor telling him to hurry to the restaurant because his father needs help calming things down. The union members had used fake identification to buy alcohol at the restaurant and then called the police, accusing Hoo-min's father of selling alcohol to minors. It is a deliberate setup designed to put the restaurant in serious trouble. Afterward, Baekjin calls Hoo-min and sends him an address. He asks Hoo-min to meet him the following day. Meanwhile, Seoon tells Hoo-min that he no longer wants to spend time with him and the others. He says that he prefers being alone and does not want to get involved in the conflict between Hoo-min and Baekjin. Hoo-min is disappointed, but Seoon seems determined to stay away from the situation. At the end of the school day, Seoon leaves early because he claims he has to go to cram school. Hoo-min also makes an excuse, telling the others that he has a date. However, he is actually going to meet Baekjin. At the same time, Song Jae and several members of the union are given orders to find Hyun-tak, Jun-tae, and Seoon. Seoon soon encounters a group of students from Ganghak High School. However, they let him go because Baekjin has specifically ordered them not to touch him. Jun-tae and Hyun-tak are not so lucky. They run directly into Song Jae and the Ganghak High group. Realizing how dangerous the situation is, Hyun-tak tells Jun-tae to run while he stays behind. Two gang members chase Jun-tae while Song Jae and another student focus on Hyun-tak. Jun-tae manages to stay ahead of his pursuers long enough to call Seoon. He tells Seoon to stay away and not get involved, but before he can say much more, the gang members catch up with him. Even after hearing Jun-tae's warning, Seoon refuses to abandon him and immediately turns around to help. Meanwhile, Hoo-min arrives at the bowling alley to meet Baekjin. Several union members try to stop him downstairs, but Hoo-min quickly intimidates them into revealing where Baekjin's office is. When he finally meets Baekjin, Baekjin requested that Hoo-min should join the union. He explains that he has plans to turn the organization into a profitable business once they all graduate from high school. Hoo-min seems to be not interested. He calls Baekjin an idiot and makes it clear that he will never join his gang. Baekjin calmly responds by calling Hoo-min the idiot also. At that moment, Hoo-min realizes the truth. The entire meeting was simply a distraction designed to keep him away while the union attacked Hyun-tak and Jun-tae. Hoo-min becomes furious and wants to attack Baekjin, but he eventually chooses not to. As he leaves the office, several union members try to block his path. None of them are strong enough to stop him, and Hoo-min easily pushes through them. Baekjin eventually comes out and allows Hoo-min to leave. But Hoo-min makes one thing very clear. Baekjin did not let him go. Hoo-min says that he was the one who chose not to kill everyone there. Hoo-min then rushes off to find Hyun-tak. By this point, Song Jae is brutally beating Hyun-tak while other members of the union record the fight and livestream it. Jun-tae can only watch helplessly from the side, unable to do anything to stop them. Meanwhile, Seoon hears some students talking about the fight and learns where it is happening. He immediately rushes to the rooftop. When he arrives, Song Jae is preparing to take a victory photo with the battered Hyun-tak and Jun-tae. Seoon did not hesitate. He walks straight towards Song Jae and attacks him. The two immediately get into a brutal fight. Song Jae is physically stronger and throws more powerful punches, but Seoon fights with a completely different mindset. He is not trying to win a normal fight. His only goal is to stop Song Jae from being able to continue fighting. During the struggle, Seoon grabs Song Jae's glasses and uses the broken frame to stab his foot. Song Jae becomes even more excited by the fight. No matter how badly he beats Seoon, the younger student keeps getting back up. Even when he is clearly exhausted and injured, Seoon continues staring at Song Jae without showing fear. This only makes Song Jae want to defeat him even more. Eventually, Song Jae decides that he is going to finish Seoon with a fatal attack. But Seoon notices what he is planning and moves before Song Jae can strike. The two attack each other at nearly the same moment and both collapse onto the ground, completely exhausted. As they lie there, the sound of police sirens can be heard approaching in the distance. Just then, Hoo-min finally arrives on the rooftop. He immediately rushes towards Seoon to check if he is okay. However, Seoon is barely conscious and mistakes Hoo-min for Suho. Thinking that his old friend is standing beside him, Seoon quietly tells Suho that he has gotten into another fight and apologizes. After saying those words, Seoon loses consciousness, leaving Hoo-min worried as the situation around them finally comes to an end. A flashback to the volunteer day, when Seoon and Hoo-min were slowly getting to know each other. During their conversation, Hoo-min reveals that Hyun-tak was once a Taekwondo champion. However, because of something that happened between them, Hyun-tak suffered a serious injury that ended his career. Although Hyun-tak eventually recovered and moved on, Hoo-min still feels responsible for ruining his friend's future. Seoon understands those feelings because he also carries the guilt of what happened to Suho. Back in the present, Seoon wakes up at Hoo-min's house. After the police arrived at the rooftop, Hoo-min managed to escape with Seun and carried his unconscious body back home. He treated Seun's injuries and stayed beside him until he finally woke up. Hoo-min promises that he will never allow anything like that to happen to Seun again. But Seun warns him that fighting will not solve the problem. Hoo-min decides that the only way to end his conflict with Baek-jin is to admit defeat. It is then revealed that Hoo-min and Baek-jin have known each other since childhood. Back when they were younger, Hoo-min would always stand up for Baek-jin whenever other students bullied him. Their friendship was once strong, which makes their current conflict even more complicated. Meanwhile, Baek-jin goes to the hospital to pick up Song-ji. Instead of simply taking him home, Baek-jin brings him to one of the union's usual meeting places, where members who disobey him are disciplined. Baek-jin starts asking Song-ji about the union's burner account. Song-ji quickly realizes that Baek-jin did not come because he was worried about him. He only wanted to know what Song-ji had told the police. Song-ji becomes angry because, despite everything they have done, he believed that he and Baek-jin were still part of the same organization. He tells Baek-jin exactly what he said to the police before deciding to leave. Song-ji then says that he is taking a few days off and warns Baek-jin not to come looking for him. Meanwhile, the relationship between Seun, Hoo-min, Hyun-tak, and Jun-tae continues to grow stronger. The four spend more time together at school, studying, playing basketball, and simply enjoying each other's company. Seun, who was previously determined to stay alone, slowly becomes comfortable around them. However, their peaceful days do not last. Hoo-min receives a call from the police station concerning his father's case. He learns that the boys who previously accused his father of selling alcohol to minors have changed their statements, which puts him in an even worse position. When Hoo-min arrives at the police station, he finds his father being held in a cell. Outside, he overhears the boys laughing about what they have done. Furious, Hoo-min follows them out of the station and attacks them. Just as he is losing control, he receives a message from Baek-jin. Baek-jin tells Hoo-min not to give in to his anger. He makes it clear that he will only leave Hoo-min's friends and father alone if Hoo-min agrees to join the union. Baek-jin is using everyone Hoo-min cares about to force him into submission, leaving Hoo-min with almost no choice. Elsewhere, Seun arrives home and finds his mother waiting for him. She knows that he has not been attending cram school and immediately notices the injuries on his face. She also realizes that something is seriously wrong. His mother then gives him an admission opportunity to study abroad and tells him to prepare to leave. Seun refuses and tells her to leave him alone, reminding her that she did the same thing in the past. His words deeply hurt his mother, and she breaks down. At the same time, Baek-jin continues tightening his grip on Hoo-min. He uses Hoo-min's friends and his father's safety as leverage, making it impossible for Hoo-min to simply walk away. Hoo-min eventually stops going to school, which leads to an argument with his father. With the people he loves being threatened, Hoo-min finally decides to accept Baek-jin's offer and join the union. His first task is to convince Seacom High School's strongest fighter, known as Gorilla, to join the organization. Hoo-min tracks him down at a nightclub. When Gorilla refuses to cooperate, Hoo-min defeats him with a single powerful punch. With their strongest fighter beaten, Seacom High has no choice but to become part of the union. Meanwhile, Hyun-tak and Jun-tae secretly get Seun's home address from the school. They show up at his house the night before he is supposed to leave for his studies abroad. Instead of letting him spend his final night alone, they invite him outside so the three of them can spend some time together. They play basketball and enjoy one last moment together. During their time together, Seun asks about Hoo-min and discovers that he has not been coming to school. Worried about his friend, Seun calls him. Hoo-min assures him that he will make sure nothing happens to him before ending the call. Hoo-min then arrives at the bowling alley, where Baek-jin and the other union members are waiting for him. With everyone gathered there, Hoo-min officially prepares to enter the organization he once wanted nothing to do with. He is doing it not because he wants to become one of them, but because he believes it is the only way to protect his father and his friends. The next morning, Seun is at the airport waiting to board his flight. Just before he leaves, Jun-tae calls him. Instead of asking him to stay, Jun-tae finally tells Seun something he has needed to hear for a long time. He tells Seun that what happened to Hoo-min, Hyun-tak, and even Soo-ho is not his fault. Those words finally reach Seun. For so long, he has carried the guilt of everything that happened around him and believed that leaving was the only way to escape it. But after hearing Jun-tae's words, Seun realizes that running away will not solve anything. He makes his decision and chooses not to leave. With Seun staying behind and Hoo-min now inside the union, the balance between the two sides is about to change completely. We can see Seun telling Hyun-tak and Jun-tae discussing on how they need to bring Hoo-min back. Meanwhile, Hoo-min continues carrying out Baekjin's orders. He forces another school to join the union and receives money from Baekjin for completing the job. Hoo-min has no choice but to accept the money because his father needs it to pay the fine connected to the police case. Hoo-min remembers how different Baekjin used to be. He begins thinking about how Baekjin changed after Hoo-min taught him how to fight when they were younger. Seun, Hyun-tak, and Jun-tae then visit Hoo-min's house hoping to find some information about him. Instead, they meet Hoo-min's father, who speaks badly about his own son. He calls Hoo-min worthless and compares him to his mother, saying that she also never listened to him. Seun cannot accept what he is hearing. He tells Hoo-min's father that Hoo-min is actually a good person who genuinely cares about his friends and gets along with everyone at school. Seun then tells him that if he truly thinks so badly of his own son, perhaps he is the one with the problem. Hoo-min's father becomes angry and throws them out of the house. Still determined to find Hoo-min, the boys turn to Hyo-man for answers. Hyo-man reveals more about the union and explains how the organization actually operates. It turns out that Baekjin and the union work for a businessman named CEO Choi. He owns the bowling alley that Baek manages, as well as a motorcycle company registered under Daesung Construction. The bowling alley is not simply a place for people to play. It is being used as a front for laundering money. Baekjin created the union to recruit high school students and make them work for CEO Choi. The bowling alley officially hires these students as part-time workers and pays them well, but behind the scenes, they are being used to carry out illegal jobs. One of the union's biggest businesses is stealing motorcycles. The gang takes stolen motorcycles to Daesung Construction, where they are rebuilt, repainted, and given new license plates. They are then sold as if they were brand new motorcycles on the black market. After the motorcycles are sold, the gang steals them again and repeats the entire process, allowing them to make even more money from the same vehicles. The business brings in a huge amount of money, which Baekjin then launders through the bowling alley. But the union members do not stay involved only because of the money. CEO Choi also keeps a record of every crime they commit. After learning all of this, Seun decides to confront Baekjin himself. He tells Hyun-tak and Jun-tae to stay where they are and not make any plans until he gets back. Seun then goes to the bowling alley and waits for Baekjin. However, Baekjin does not return until very late. While Seun waits, Hyun-tak and Jun-tae ignore his instructions and decide to investigate Daesung Construction themselves. When Baekjin finally returns to the bowling alley, he finds Seun waiting for him. Seun tries to understand why Baekjin is so determined to control Hoo-min. He realizes that Hoo-min is probably the only person who truly understands Baekjin. Baekjin then shows Seun CCTV footage from Daesung Construction. At the same time, Hyun-tak and Jun-tae are searching the building for evidence. When they cannot find Hoo-min, they break into the documents room and begin looking for the ledger containing records of Baekjin's criminal activities. Unfortunately, Baekjin has already anticipated their actions. He sends several union members to deal with them. When Seun realizes what is happening, he becomes furious and grabs whatever weapons he can find nearby. But he knows that his usual methods will not be enough against the union's strongest fighters, so he has to think differently. Just then, Hoo-min arrives and pulls Seun away from the building. Seun immediately tells him that Hyun-tak and Jun-tae are still inside. Hoo-min tells Seun to leave first while he deals with the situation. Earlier that same day, Baekjin had ordered Hoo-min to steal a motorcycle. But this time, Hoo-min returns without the motorcycle. He looks Baekjin in the eyes and tells him that he is finished working for him. Hoo-min tells Baekjin that he can do whatever he wants to the people in his life, but he should understand that things between them will never be the same again. Hoo-min then makes his decision completely clear. He tells Baekjin that he will never consider him a friend again and orders him never to contact him. Baekjin became angry and tries to attack him, but Hoo-min's reflexes are much faster. He easily avoids the attack and punches Baekjin in the face before walking away. Meanwhile, at Daesung Construction, Hyun-tak and Jun-tae finally find the ledger containing records of the stolen motorcycles. But before they can escape with it, members of the union arrive. Hyun-tak immediately fights back and manages to hold his own against several gang members, including Dong-ha, Seun receives a frightening phone call from the hospital. The staff tells him that Suho's condition has suddenly become critical and that they have been unable to reach his guardian. Seun becomes extremely worried and immediately heads toward the hospital. But while crossing the road, Seun is so distracted by the news that he fails to notice what is happening around him. He steps into the road and suddenly freezes in the middle of the street as a large lorry comes speeding directly toward him and knocks him. Hyun-tak and Jun-tae continue running from the Union gang. After being chased, they hide underneath a lorry hoping the gang will pass them by. Unfortunately, Songmak and Dong-ha eventually find them. Hyun-tak and Jun-tae try to fight back, but their opponents are more experienced and quickly overpower them. Just when things are about to get worse, Hoo-min arrives to help. He immediately takes on Songmak and Dong-ha and manages to defeat them despite being hit hard in the head by a man riding a motorcycle. However, the attack pushes Hoo-min into a rage. He grabs Dong-ha by the neck and begins strangling him, nearly killing him before the others manage to intervene. During the chaos, Jun-tae receives a call informing him that Seun has been involved in an accident. The three immediately rush to the hospital. Seun is being treated in the ICU while his mother waits outside for news about his condition. She eventually tells them that Seun is stable, but she asks them to stay away from her son. Meanwhile, the Union has managed to recover most of the stolen ledger, but one page is still missing. Baek-jin orders his men to find that missing page at all costs. The next morning, Hoo-min returns home and finds his father preparing breakfast. His father invites him to eat and tells him that Seun, Hyun-tak, and Jun-tae had visited the house earlier. He then tells Hoo-min that it seems like he has finally found some good friends and reminds him to treat them well. Hearing this makes Hoo-min emotional because he knows exactly what he has done and how much his friends have suffered because of him. Unable to hold back his feelings, Hoo-min began to cry. Meanwhile, Jun-tae takes the missing page from the ledger to the police station, hoping they will investigate the Union's criminal activities. But he soon realizes that the police are not willing to take action based on the evidence he has. As Jun-tae leaves the station, several Union members suddenly appear and grab him. They drag Jun-tae to one of their warehouses where several gang members surround him and began to beat him up. Baek-jin then calls and asks to speak with Jun-tae directly. Baek-jin tells him that one piece of paper is not enough to destroy the Union. But Jun-tae turns the situation around and asks Baek-jin why he sounds so nervous if the page means nothing. Baek-jin orders Jun-tae to delete any pictures he may have taken of the missing page. Jun-tae refuses and gives him a condition. He says he will only delete the evidence if Baek-jin leaves his friends alone. Baek-jin coldly tells him that his condition does not matter because Jun-tae is going to die at the warehouse anyway. The Union members continue beating him, but Jun-tae refuses to surrender. Their noise eventually wakes Song Jae, who has been sleeping in another room inside the warehouse. When Song Jae sees how badly Jun-tae is being treated, he becomes interested in his determination. Song Jae easily takes down the Union members and frees Jun-tae. He then contacts Hoo-min and Hyun-tak and tells them to come and pick Jun-tae up. Song Jae also becomes curious about the students at Eunjang High School. He asks Hoo-min if he is the top fighter at the school, but after watching Jun-tae refuse to break, Song Jae begins wondering if Jun-tae might actually be the strongest of them all. Elsewhere, CEO Choi arrives at the bowling alley early because of the missing ledger page. He is furious with the Union members and has them beaten for disrespecting him and putting the organization at risk. He reminds them that he is the true leader and that Baek-jin can be removed whenever he wants. CEO Choi then makes a chilling statement that when he returns, Baek-jin's position may already be over. The following day, Hoo-min goes directly to Yeol High School with a megaphone. Instead of hiding or waiting for Baek-jin to attack them, he openly challenges him to a fight. Hoo-min tells Baek-jin to choose the date and declares that if Eunjang High School wins, Baek-jin must shut down the Union. Hoo-min then calls Hyun-tak and tells him to inform everyone at Eunjang that they will be fighting the Union. The students are excited by the idea of standing up to the gang, but they are also terrified because they know exactly how powerful the Union is. Later, Hoo-min visited the hospital to see Seun. He stays outside the room and apologizes for everything that happened, including the role Baek-jin played in Seun's injuries. Seun's mother eventually arrives and invites Hoo-min inside. She tells him that the doctors believe Seun is going to be fine. The accident was not as serious as they initially feared, but it affected his nervous system, so his body needs time to rest and recover. While unconscious, Seun finds himself trapped inside a boxing ring. In his mind, his past is represented by Byum Suk, who seems determined to keep him trapped in everything that happened before. Seun realizes that he cannot continue allowing his guilt and his past to control him. He makes a firm decision to wake up and return to the people who now matter to him, including his new friends and Suho. Soon afterward, Seun finally opens his eyes. The first person he wants to see is Suho, but Hoomin stops him and assures him that Suho is okay. The nurses have managed to contact Suho's grandmother, and his condition is stable. Immediately, he got better. Soon visits Suho at the hospital, sitting beside his unconscious friend, and he apologizes for coming so late. He also apologizes for forgetting something Suho once taught him about appreciating his friends and enjoying the time they have together. Seun then tells Suho that he wants to do for his new friends what Suho once did for him. After leaving Suho's room, Seun finds Hyuntak, Juntae, and Hoomin waiting in the hospital lobby. His friends try to change the subject and avoid talking about the situation. He asks them directly what they plan to do about Baekjin. With Seun finally back on his feet and the four friends standing together again, Seun remembers what Hyoman previously told them about the union. Most of its members are not loyal to Baekjin. They are there because they are being paid. Seun realizes that if money is what brought the union together, then money could also be used to tear it apart. To make this plan work, Seun approaches Songji, one of the few people Baekjin genuinely trusted. Seun convinces him to provide information about the union's burner account. With Hyoman acting as a whistleblower, they expose the account and reveal that Baekjin has secretly been taking money from the union members. A huge amount of money totaling more than 79 million. Once the information spreads throughout the union, many of the members become angry and lose their trust in Baekjin. Since they joined mainly for money, they see no reason to risk themselves for someone who has been stealing from them. As a result, a large number of union members decide not to show up for the fight. Even after reducing the union's numbers, Seun knows that Baekjin is still extremely dangerous. He therefore comes up with another plan with Hoomin. If Baekjin manages to knock Hoomin out during their fight, Seun will step in and keep Baekjin occupied for as long as possible. Seun knows he cannot defeat Baekjin, but he believes he can survive long enough to give Hoomin time to recover and stand up again. The entire plan depends on Hoomin refusing to stay down. Before the fight begins, Seun receives a message from Songji. He tells Seun that Baekjin will be away from the bowling alley, giving them an opportunity to search for more evidence against him. Seun agrees to meet him, unaware that Songji has actually planned to lure him away from the battlefield and keep him trapped at the bowling alley. Juntae realizes what is happening and decides to go after Seun. He manages to reach the bowling alley and helps Seun deal with the union member who was assigned to keep him there. However, Juntae was injured in the process. Even though he is hurt, he tells Seun to leave him behind and go to the fight. Juntae makes it clear that he wants Eunjang students to finally be free from the fear that the union has created. Meanwhile, more students from Eunjang High School decided to join the fight, including members of Hyoman's former group. The union fighters are more experienced and skilled, but the Eunjang students refuse to back down. They keep the union members occupied, allowing the more important fights to take place. Hyuntak finally gets the one-on-one fight he has been waiting for against Dongha. The two have clashed several times before, but Dongha has always dominated him. Hyuntak is a skilled taekwondo fighter, while Dongha specializes in judo, giving him a major advantage in close combat. Dongha repeatedly throws Hyuntak to the ground and beats him down. But Hyuntak's greatest strength is his endurance. No matter how many times Dongha knocks him down, Hyuntak keeps getting back up. After enduring everything Dongha throws at him, Hyuntak manages to knock him out and finally wins their long-running battle. The biggest fight then begins between Hoomin and Baekjin. They exchanged powerful attacks, and neither one is willing to back down. But eventually, Baekjin gains the advantage and manages to knock Hoomin unconscious. With Hoomin down, the fighting stops because the main challenge was supposed to determine whether Hoomin or Baekjin would win. Baekjin believes that he has won and declares that Eunjang High School will now come under the control of the union. He challenges anyone else to step forward if they want to oppose him. Hyuntak is prepared to accept the challenge, but before he can step forward, Seun suddenly arrives. He immediately takes Baekjin's place as his next opponent, but the fight quickly becomes extremely one-sided. Baekjin is far stronger physically, and he repeatedly beats Seun to the ground. Still, Seun refuses to stay down. However, Seun is not simply trying to defeat Baekjin. He has already identified the part of Baekjin's body he wants to damage, his leg. Every time Seun gets back up, he continues targeting Baekjin's leg. Even as his own hands, legs, and body become badly injured, he keeps attacking the same area. Baekjin cannot understand why Seun continues getting back up when it is obvious that he cannot win the fight. Eventually, but even with Seun's strategy, Baekjin is still clearly winning. Then, just when it seems like Seun has reached his limit, Humin finally gets back on his feet. He returned to the fight and finishes what Seun started. With Baekjin already weakened, Humin defeats him and declares that the union will cease to exist from that moment forward. The students of Eunjang High School celebrate their victory as they leave the battlefield together. Baekjin is left lying on the ground, badly beaten, to even stand up. After the battle, life at Eunjang High School gradually returns to normal. Hyoman, who was once the school's bully, eventually became the school president. Seun also begins spending more time with Humin, Hyuntak, and Juntae, showing just how much his life has changed since he first arrived at Eunjang. Seun later reflects on what happened to Baekjin. Nobody seems to know where he went or what happened to him. Seun receives an unexpected phone call. He and his friends immediately rush to the hospital. When Seun enters, he gets the biggest surprise of all. Suho has finally woken up from his coma. Seun rushes toward his old friend, and Suho recognizes him immediately. Suho is relieved to see Seun again, and is especially happy when he learns that Seun has made new friends and is no longer living his life completely alone. In the other side, Mr. Choi approaches Song Ji-yi and tries to convince him to take Baekjin's place. But Song Ji-yi refuses and instead asks where Baekjin is. The story came to a heartbreaking end as we see Humin crying at Baekjin's funeral, revealing that despite everything that happened between them, their complicated childhood friendship still meant something to him.